So Life Lessons TV, look, it's going to be sort of, I think, a little bit edgy. I think it's going to be a little bit off the cuff. I'm letting you know now that once I get excited about a topic, I might swear a little bit. I might let a couple of curses go. So it's one of those things where I think I just want things to be kind of real. Hey everyone, welcome to Life Lessons TV. I'm your host, Adrian D'Amico. Welcome to our show today where I've got a special guest that's joining us, Lisa Burling. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you here. I've been wanting to have you on the show for some time, and I really want to talk about, you're such an inspiration. You've been an inspiration to me to hear your story and the things that I've personally observed of you over the last probably 6 months or so, or a little bit less, 4 to 6 months, is that you are serving as an inspiration to a lot of, I would say women, but men and women. So, I guess without further ado, can you introduce yourself, who you are and what you do? And obviously we're in your office today, so thanks very much for having us here.
Which is awesome, and it's so lovely to be in front of my tree of inspiration to do this. But yeah, I'm Lisa Burling. I am the owner of a public relations consultancy, but I'm also an entrepreneur, and that's how I tend to describe myself these days. I'm a mum of 2 little boys, 4 and 2. I'm a proud single mum, so that's part of the reason this business came about. I had a pretty big change in my personal life, which I'm sure we'll talk about, that led to that. And I'm really proud to be a woman, in today's age where the opportunities are endless if you want them, and certainly a believer that you can do anything if you put your mind to it.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. So let's go into your story. You, from what I've read and what I've heard, you've always had a passion for journalism, right? Mm-hmm. Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. From the moment I can sort of remember, I've loved writing. I was the girl at school writing books that I would go around to classes and read to the students. And here in sort of my hometown of Wollongong, an opportunity came up when I was at high school to do an internship at the local paper, the Illawarra Mercury. And I remember the person coming into our English class and saying that this was an opportunity. There were 2 places. And I sat there and I just had no question in my mind, as a 15-year-old girl, that I was going to be one of the girls or boys that got to go to the Mercury and experience being a journalist.
So you knew.
And that's exactly what happened. And I spent, it was probably 6 to 8 weeks there writing stories, bylines in the paper, learning my craft essentially. And I didn't really realise how pivotal that moment was in my life until I look back now and see that actually that paved the way for my future career and really honed my love of words. And when people ask what I do, I say, at my core, I'm a storyteller, and that manifests itself in various forms. But yeah, that was where the love of journalism started, and it was certainly a deciding factor in me pursuing that in terms of tertiary education and then kind of segueing into PR.
Yeah, I love it. So when you got that position there with the paper, how long were you there for?
It was about 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was back in the days when computers were massive and chunky, and I remember we hand wrote a lot of stuff, and there was a lot of sort of cutting and pasting physically, cutting and pasting words, typewriters, but I just remember being surrounded by a buzz and being excited that you had people and stories appear that you could then tell others. So you really were a conduit for stories that perhaps people wouldn't get to hear about otherwise. And it really was, I guess, the sort of golden days of print journalism back then. It was a buzzing newsroom, you could almost see the guy with the hat and the little pen the side behind the ear. It was, it was quite a while ago, and things have changed quite significantly since then. But yeah, it was just innate what happened then, and that kind of passion has never left me. And I sit here now running a PR consultancy, but my love of words will take me on all sorts of journeys. I'm fairly sure of that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So where'd you go from there?
So after that, I left school and I went to Charles Sturt University in Bathurst. Was always a dream of mine to go there, and most of my friends were like, why the hell are you going to Bathurst, a country town? But it was the best journalism course in the country, and still to this day produces some of the best journalism talent the country has seen.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud that a lot of my friends are now, you know, kicking serious goals in that area, and it's very useful to me as a PR consultant that they are. But yeah, I spent 3 years living in the country, honing my craft. I did broadcast journalism as my major, so we had a TV station on campus, we had a radio station. The local town was pretty much geared up to students being able to interview the mayor, for example, and really be journalists, and that's what I loved about it. We did media production as well, so we learned how to put together shows like this sort of thing, although back in those days we had reels and we certainly didn't have all the technology.
A lot more clunky than this.
Exactly. But yeah, it was awesome, and it, you know, as a girl that grew up in Wollongong, it exposed me to a lot of different people, particularly those that came from Sydney, you know, and they had a whole other perspective on life. So it was really, really wonderful, and we had a theatre strand to the degree as well, and that attracted, you know, all sorts of people, some of whom have gone on to be quite famous movie stars. So yeah, I felt, you know, really lucky to be there. And after 3 years, I was sort of ready to get going and, you know, do the real thing, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
So let's skip a couple of years, I guess.
Let's do that.
All
It's a bit dull if we go through every
We
year.
won't go through year by year.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to you got 2 boys.
I do.
And to the story of your second boy. Is that okay if we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, he is quite instrumental to me sitting here with you, even.
Yeah.
So so my second child, Nate, was born 7 weeks early. And that's never in anyone's plan, you know, to have a preemie baby. And, you know, the pregnancy wasn't ideal, but you never sort of expected him to arrive so soon. And I didn't realise it at the time, but that was actually a catalyst for all sorts of things in my life, and I describe it as the seismic plates of my life shifting, because that's really what it was. My partner at the time, so the father of my 2 boys, told me one day that he didn't love me. And when I say one day, it was 2-3 days after I'd had Nate. I was in hospital. He was in NICU. You know, we didn't know if he was going to make it or not.
Wow.
And it was devastating, absolutely devastating. And at the time, it felt like an out-of-body experience. And I really thought, what have I done to deserve this? You know, I've had the dream life up until this point.
So how old was your firstborn when you...
He was 3.
He was 3.
So
okay, so you're in hospital. You've had a premature baby. Obviously, things are very touch and go with... I mean, 7 weeks preemie is...
Not ideal.
Yeah, it's right on the danger line sort of thing. And then, how did it happen? The news? It was a text message?
It was a phone call.
A phone call, okay.
And you know, those sort of situations are unsettling for everyone, to put it mildly. And we can behave out of character because you've got to cope. And I think possibly in that situation, I was better equipped to cope with what was happening. And I really thought that it was just a phase, or it would go away and, you know, we'd get past it. But it became fairly clear that it wasn't. And once I kind of had that realisation, I had all sorts of decisions to make. But yeah, it was incredibly, incredibly tough. But I look back now and think, wow, you know, you can get through that. You can get through anything. Exactly right.
All right, so take us through, I hope it's all right. So take us through, obviously you've got the news, it's devastating. I mean, you're already, I know, I've got 3 kids, so you're already in an emotional state. There's things happening and changing in your body, and you've got all this stuff going on around you. But the story doesn't end there, because you didn't just sort of go from, you know, triumph to success and things like that.
No.
Can you tell me more about that?
Okay, so I guess once I sort of figured out or realised that my reality was that I had 2 very small children and I would be raising them without their dad around day to day. It's fight or flight, it really is. And I will hand on heart say to you, I had moments of absolute despair where I thought I can't go on, and was living in a very quiet area of Kiama in the south coast at that time. Spent a lot of time stargazing out in the veranda asking why. You know, why was this happening? I've done everything right my whole life. I don't deserve it. But then I started to change my mindset, and I can't even tell you why. And it was probably when I was nursing Nate, you know, in those early hours of the morning, looking at his little face, and he's the wisest baby I've ever met. He is my catalyst, as I said. And I would talk to him about what was going on, tell him it would be okay. And I started to map out a plan, because at the end of the day, I'm a doer, you know, and I'm very goal-driven, and I've got the high achiever gene. So I thought, I have to use this to make good. And I have to use it to make good for those little boys, because they've been thrust into a situation that they didn't ask for, and I'm their mum.
Wasn't their choice.
Exactly. And I also thought a lot about who I was. And I think as women, we can segregate our role as a mother from our career. And the aspirations and achievements that we have. And I, you know, spent 12 years in London building an amazing career, and I felt like that had almost been lost.
Right.
And when I thought about what I had in my, you know, positivity armory at that time, and there wasn't a lot, one of them was my career. You know, and I had something really valuable that I could hone and harness to turn into something that would allow me to be a great mum, but also find my passion again. And that's really when I started to think about setting up a business, you know, against all sensible advice, and creating something, an entity that would get me out of bed and make me feel worth something, put to use all my skills, and make my little boys proud. And at the end of the day, everything I do is to make them proud and make them see that, you know, anything is possible.
Is there a defining moment? I find, like on a previous episode, I talked about the turning point. Okay, so you know, for a lot of people, it's really at the depths of despair. Others, it's a divorce, it's a breakup, it's a loss of a business, a loss of a loved one. And I employ people to, like, don't wait for that to happen. You know, if you want to make things change, well then, you know, make a change. But do you believe that there was a turning point or a pivotal moment that changed the direction from, you know, because there's a story that I'm thinking of, which is the Centrelink story.
Have you been to Centrelink?
You know what, I have. As a young, like 16, 17-year-old, I have, yeah, definitely. Can you tell us about that story?
Sure, yes.
Well, first of all, do you think that you can tell the story, and then do you think that was the turning point?
There were several turning points, but it's probably the most defining of all of them.
Tell us that story.
So, yeah, you know, as a single parent, unfortunately, and I was unemployed, I was pretty much every minority group you could think of.
Right.
Unemployed, single mum, you know, it was just awful. And I thought a lot about decisions I'd made to get myself there. I mean, it really was mind-blowing that someone who, you know, saw herself as intelligent and capable could be where I was. And I think Centrelink and having to go in there and ask a stranger to give me money and give me every bit of money they could was almost soul-destroying. I was fortunately put in front of a beautiful man who could clearly see how distressed I was by what was happening. And at that point, I was still not emotionally right. I mean, you know, we talk about mental health a lot more nowadays, which is important, but I was living in a dream. I felt like it was just a nightmare that I was going to wake up from, and no one could make me feel better. I had to, you know, put things in place to make myself feel better, and one of them was setting up the basics like financial assistance. So this man was gorgeous, and he grabbed me by the hand after we'd kind of been through everything, and he said, "Don't worry, this is only temporary." And I'll never forget it, and even now it makes me emotional, because I thought, God, you don't even know me, but you're looking at me and there must be something that makes you go,
struck a chord.
You don't belong here.
Yeah.
So after that, I walked out, you know, very upset, and I went across the road to a park, and I sat on a park bench, and it was, the sun was on my back, and I remember sitting there and thinking, this is a moment and I want to capture it. So I got my phone out, and I set myself a diary date for a year. And all the message said was, "See, I told you it would get better."
Oh, really?
And it was a note to my future self.
Yeah.
And it was pretty amazing when it popped up again where I was. And things had definitely...
Do you remember how you felt at that time?
A disbelief a little bit, that all the steps along the way had led to what I'd hoped for. I've always been a dreamer, and I think if you're a storyteller, you are. But to have come so far so quickly, yeah, it kind of changed my idea of what could be achieved in the next year, for example.
Wow. Okay, so let's skip forward little while long. I'm not sure of the timeline here. So, as far as I know you, so a single mum with swagger, PR agency, and some really decent accolades and awards to boot. Do you want to share with us what you've done?
Sure. I am very externally referenced. Anyone who knows me knows that from a very young age I was the girl trying to get the awards and the ribbons, and it's just been in me. I don't even know where it's come from. My parents are the most unpushy, humble people I know, but for me it's important. And I think with this business, and I've actually stopped calling it a business because it is a passion, and it is such an integral part of the journey from me going from that Centrelink phase to sitting here with someone like you talking right now. Having recognition from others that I was doing good with my passion was really important. Not critical, but important. So we've had some recognition from the Illawarra business community, which has been wonderful for the business and for myself, which I was quite shocked that personally I was seen to be doing great as a businesswoman, because I'm a novice when it comes to running a business. PR I can do with my eyes shut, but the business side of fulfilling
well, the business is young, but the PR side is
old.
Many
20
years experience.
On, exactly.
Yeah.
And just last week, the Public Relations Institute of Australia awarded us Micro Consultancy of the Year, which was 3 or less people. We're doing good, we're punching above our weight, and I always wanted with this this passion to take what I learnt, overseas and here, and put and behave the way that any big consultancy would. So we have things like company values, which is quite unusual at this stage of a business's life cycle. But for me, it's so important because it guides every decision that we make as a team and that I make in terms of who I work with, who my team is, the way we behave day to day, and they're my personal values as well. So it's a really nice mesh between the two.
Awesome. Yeah. So tell us about the Richard Branson story.
Oh wow, Richard Branson. So you mentioned, Single Mum with Swagger, which is my blog, and I wanted to write one about meeting Sir Richard, which I'll talk about now. But what I love about it is that, it was a lovely, Richard Branson came into my world virtually at the time when I was really quite low. And the blog I wrote was about how, the father of my children, who has the same name, how he, moved on and disappeared, from my life, not from the boys at all. He's a great father. This other Richard came in, and I just started to follow Richard Branson and look at how he was doing business and the way he behaves, and just started to put things out there almost subconsciously about him, share things, how much I loved him, and then other people started to watch and get on board and would share things about him. And a local business lady, Virginia Wren, actually let me know he was going to be in Sydney at a conference, and I thought, well, I've got to go, but I just wanted to go and breathe the same air. I had no intention of getting any closer to him than you do when you're at the Sydney Entertainment Centre. Yeah. And that morning, the night before, I was in bed and just lying there thinking about the fact I was going to be breathing the same air as this man who had virtually kind of picked me up and kept me going through some pretty dark times, and actually guided a lot of decisions I made for LBPR, strangely enough for him probably. Yeah. And I just decided to Google image him on Necker Island, which, as most people know, is his beautiful island that he owns, and I found a picture of him with a woman in a bikini. And for some reason decided that I was going to put my head on her body and put that out on Facebook. And it was I didn't give it any thought. And if you see that, you can see I spent, less than 2 minutes on it. I didn't even make my head round.
Your design team didn't do it for you.
The design team was not involved. It was me in PowerPoint and, a cup of tea in bed. Yeah. And I put it out and just went to bed and said, this is, I'm seeing Richard tomorrow. I just want to breathe that same air. This is what I would look like if I met him on Necker Island. Anyway, as it turns out, and I've alluded to the fact I've got some friends who've continued their journalism career and are doing very well. One of them is the news director at 2GB, a lady called Erin, and she was looking at her Facebook the next morning, and it's a fairly obvious picture, fairly eye-catching. Yeah. And Ben Fordham, who is obviously one of their leading award-winning presenters, just happened to walk past her screen and said, "What the hell's that?" And Erin said, "Oh, it's my friend Lisa," and told him a little bit about me and, the whole Richard Branson thing. And he said, well, I'm interviewing Richard as the Q&A at that conference this afternoon.
Wow.
Send it to me and I'll see what I can do. So this was 9:30 that morning. Now, I clearly had no idea. Erin kept
Do you think anything was going to happen?
Nothing. She kept texting saying, how far from the stage are you? Because it was the entertainment
Right.
centre. Another
So
friend
they're
was
clearly
asking
like
me.
gunning for it, but you're sort of
No
whatever.
idea.
Yeah.
And it was not guaranteed. But anyway, he came on very late. It was 5:30. Everyone was getting tired. And, you know, I was still wanting to see him. For some reason, I decided to brush my hair and do my makeup, you know, just on the
Good
off chance
divine
he saw
timing.
me in the crowd.
Yeah.
And it got to the end of the Q&A and Ben said, oh, you know, so Richard, one of the things we love about you as Aussies, you tell us we can make dreams come true and anything's possible. And I was talking to my friend Erin today about that in the 2GB newsroom.
Wow.
At which point I go, I know Erin. Go Erin, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then the next minute he says,
Oh, so you didn't know that that's what you didn't make the connection?
no, not at that point. I was
Right.
still thinking, oh, la la la. Next minute,
Okay.
that dodgy photo crops up on the screens of the Sydney
No
Entertainment
way.
Centre.
Yeah.
And Ben says, you know, so Richard, we have someone here whose dream you can make true.
Really?
Lisa Burling wanted to meet you. Lisa, come on down,
Wow.
Price is Right style.
Wow.
I'm shaking. Off I go to the side of the stage, big hug. Tell Richard I was meant to meet him on Necker Island, not meant to meet him now. And that was my diary date I set a year on from the car park, by the way, that I was going to meet Richard in Necker Island. And on stage we went and I was told to sit in this chair next to him and I was like, no way. So I put my head right up next to him, kissed him, told him I loved him. But yeah, it was just amazing.
Oh, so incredible.
It was absolutely amazing. And another moment where I went, anything can happen. But where do you go from there? I don't know where to go now.
Well, you know, the bar's so high now.
Yeah.
You just got to keep going forward.
It was amazing. I truly believe that saying, you know, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with most.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm not hanging out with Richard Branson every day.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that I could, you know, be in his sphere, in his universe, even for 5 minutes, said to me, okay, girl, you can do it. You know, there's lots to be done here. So now I'm quietly plotting how I'm going to get myself to Necker Island.
I like it.
And actually people keep sending me jobs on Necker Island. Oh, you should apply. I'm like, I'm not going there to work.
Wow.
I'm going there to sit beside him as an equal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, watch your space.
I love it. So do you think there's a lot to be said about having a vision, having even hope at the lowest form, I guess, that something positive is around the corner? Or do you think that that's important? Optimism, I guess, is important in life?
I think hope is something that we all have within us. I've never really had a vision, and people can mistake that for not planning or, you know, being a bit scatty, and it absolutely isn't. But I run my life now and my passion and, you know, the business from my gut and from what I call my authenticity compass. And if it sits right, then I know it's the right thing to do. So hope is such a powerful word, and it kind of transcends gender, you know, finances, culture, whatever, you know, that's something that we all have in our reserves to tap into. So where there's life, there's hope, I think is one of my favourite sayings of all. So
I like it.
I love vision and I think it's important, but I think sometimes we can put blinkers on about what that is, and vision can then turn into very, you know, restricted objectives and that sort of thing. So I tend to go with the flow a little bit more than I did before, and it's working so far.
It's amazing.
We'll see.
It's very inspirational. Okay, so if anyone wants to, obviously we haven't talked a lot about your PR agency, but if anyone's watching, they know that you do PR. So how can they find you if they want to, read your blog, Single Mums Swagger, your website, where can anyone get in contact with you?
The best place to go is Facebook.
Yeah.
So it's LBPR1.
Yep.
And the blog, Single Mum with Swagger, all one word, is also on Facebook.
Awesome.
You
Yeah,
can
we'll link that up.
Find everything you want to there.
All right, I'm going to ask you one parting question. So the show's called Life Lessons TV. So if you, I love your blog because if anyone hasn't read it, it's a message to your boys, which is phenomenal.
I'm not the mum that's going to keep all their paintings and document in a little book all the words they say. So yeah, when they get older and ask what life was like for us, I want them to be able to read.
Oh, look, I love it. I've got 3 boys, so I'm right there with you. And you know, my boys don't even want to listen to this stuff because, you know, obviously they're 9, 5 and 3, you know. But one day they're going to think maybe Dad was all right. Who knows? I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah.
But I love that about what you're doing there. But what I was leading to is if there's a life lesson that you can leave with anyone, let's say it's your 2 children, and or anyone, you're parting ways, you're leaving the earth for good, and you can leave one life lesson, what would it be?
That's such an easy question for me to answer now,
Really?
and it wouldn't have been 2 years ago. I don't think I would have been able to answer it at all. To live a life of authenticity and to always be yourself. I have spent nearly 40 years trying to be what I think other people want me to be. I've made a lot of decisions that were not for me. I've always thought about what everyone else wants, and ever since I've changed that around, and it's not selfish, but it's to do things that feel right and are authentically who I am at core, my world has quite literally changed. So always be yourself, and I think Dr. Seuss has a book that talks all about that, and it's absolutely spot on. So I sounds awful, but I tell my little boys that. Nate, he's only 2, he doesn't quite get it, but live an authentic
Reinforce
life,
that
be
message.
authentically yourself, and you'll never ever go wrong, because there's only one you.
I love it. Lisa, thanks so much for joining me today. It's been a true inspiration to talk to you, and it's been an inspiration to be associated with you through our networking groups and just to see what you've accomplished online. I think you're a true inspiration to all men and women out there, and I congratulate you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you,
my
Adrian.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, there you guys. Episode 7, Life Lessons TV. See you on the next show.